Hello and welcome to Center of Weirdness, the weird podcast about very weird stuff, but mostly TV show episodes. I'm Josh, and with me, as always, is Skinner. Hey, Skinner.
Hey, Josh. Hey, all you freakers out there.
There you go.
True
You pulled
freakers.
it out. You pulled it out. True freakers listening. So on this episode this week, we are taking it back to kind of the way we started. When we first started this, we were looking at Erie, Indiana, and looking at the idea of more kind of paranormal kid shows, kind of thing like that. And when we started to expand into what we are now, I knew that for sure we had to get an episode of this week's show on as soon as possible. We are talking this week about Freaky Links from, I believe, 2000. Might have been 2001.
No, October 6, 2000 to June 22nd, 2001 on Fox
All right.
Network.
Yes.
I was absolutely not consuming any media for like 10 years straight here, and I had no idea this existed. And this had to debut like on a Saturday afternoon, right?
No, this was
a Saturday afternoon show.
This was from October 27th, 2000, which I believe was a Friday.
Oh, good Lord. Well, that's where TV shows go to die.
Well, for me, I was 15 at the time. This was right in my wheelhouse. I was already watching the X-Files at this point, but this felt like another kind of an extension of that. There's a lot of stuff in here that is kind of ahead of its time in a way. Like it came out in 2000. It is absolutely inspired by the Blair Witch Project, which came, I think that was 98 or 99.
I believe it's actually developed by the creators of the film.
Oh, is it? Okay, so that makes a lot of sense then. Because Haxon Films, was that the same company or something?
Yes, they are the creators.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense, but it also is pretty early on in the glut of found footage stuff. I mean, we'd had found footage type movies before the Blair Witch Project, but that one definitely brought it back into the limelight. And then it kind of was like slow building until Paranormal Activity hit in, I think, like 2005. And then it kind of blew up and you got everything happening. But like, I give them credit for at least trying to keep that going, that sort of style going. They don't thankfully do the entire show like that, because I think it would be terrible if that were the case.
Well, my take on it was that every time they did do it, I hated it.
Yeah,
but,
it's not. I mean,
this was. I think what was funny about this was that to kind of do something similar to Blair Witch, they had a freakylinks.com set up.
Yeah,
before the show
for sure
made to look stupid.
Is it still active?
You want to check?
Let's see. Was it freakylinks.com or freakylinks.net?
.com. It was cleverly designed to look like an amateurish homebrew website made by real-life paranormal enthusiasts. So this is where Q started.
Yeah, I mean, there's some funny bits in here about the way that they go about things, about like how they have to document things and they have to do a bunch of stuff that the police are telling them not to and that they know is illegal, because they have to get the truth out there and they have to get it out to the people. And that feels very much sort of like where we are right now, with a bunch of people just posting absolute garbage on the internet going, this is the truth and people need to know about it.
I think it's more impressive that this is, before the tech bubble really burst, is that apparently their shitty website with his shitty podcast, which predates most podcasts, and his videos he uploads that must be played in real player and look like fucking garbage.
Yes,
but like affords him a very nice house, and they all mention that this is absolutely what they're doing for a living.
Yeah, so to kind of give you, because you'd never seen this before, and you probably will never want to watch another episode. So I won't even say maybe we'll watch another one, because I don't think you will want to.
Can't say that I do.
So I think basically they have a website. I think I can't remember how the show begins, but basically
this is only the fourth episode.
Yes.
So like somebody's already changed their look.
They have a website, and they are involved, and I think that like somehow his brother, who slight content warning, I think commits suicide. And then there's like a video of him where it appears that he might actually still be alive. And then that kind of brings in Chloe, who is in this episode, because she was his brother's ex-girlfriend. And it's it was like it's a whole thing. And so like that's how the show picks up. And then I think there's like little bits and pieces of about Adam and like who he really was and what he might have been involved in that like kind of gets dropped into episodes here and there, but they only got one season, so I don't think anything ever got resolved.
None of the backstory is in this episode. This is the production code wise. This is the first episode.
Really? How do we keep doing that?
I don't know, because like it clearly isn't plot wise.
No,
like, they make reference to people and people changing their look and things they've done, but like
maybe they shot the pilot and then they shot this one and then they put it a little bit later in the run. So
the pilot has its own production code. Then it goes 02 for the first episode, 03 for the third, and then this one, the fourth episode, is 01, and then it goes in order the rest of the way.
Huh? Interesting.
Basically, but yeah, like that's if they're viral, which I'm not sure they would even know that word would be starting to be used at this point. Marketing for the Pteranodon picture was out there. They may have wanted to film this right away because it was their big hook.
Yeah, maybe. So like the reason that I picked this particular episode is because I have a personal connection to it, which we'll get into as we go. But basically to set this up is we kind of get the episodes all sort of opened the same way, with him doing like very much like an Erie, Indiana thing where he's telling the story of what is happening. So like what you're seeing in the episode,
what has happened.
Yes. So you know that he survives, and there's no like he's got a little scars and stuff on him and like some injuries, because obviously this was a very very troubling case for them to deal with. But he very much sets it up the same way. I'm very curious how his website worked, like if it was just audio clips or if there was video footage, because the way he does it, it sounds like it's a podcast.
Well, he's recording his audio, which must sound pristine.
He's recording it on his onboard computer mic while walking around in his apartment.
Yes, so it must sound great. No vocal fry, at least.
The worst sounding podcast probably imaginable.
Jesus Christ. I don't. There's something about where. Marshall was never my favorite character.
Sure. In
Erie, Indiana, but somehow the framing device of the main character talking in the past about his adventure he already had, but in a flippant, trying to be entertaining way, or kind of smarmy way, is so much more annoying when it's an adult. Like I legitimately just fucking hated this guy.
Yeah, I mean it's
and his like trying to be young and hip, and my favorite, as somebody who has lost a lot of hair in the last 5 years, but I'm older than this dude, is when someone tries to grow out their hair so it's spiky, but they have the receding hairline like Dracula.
I haven't mentioned it, but of course this is Ethan Embry. Who's been in a ton of things.
Yes.
You've seen, this guy. You've seen him. He's in That Thing You Do, Can't Hardly Wait, Empire Records. Like he's in everything. So he's a kind of a. I wouldn't say necessarily he's a huge star, but he's a well-known performer. A couple other folks not as well-known really haven't done as much, though. I will say his second in command, Jason, is played by Kareem Prince, who Skinner, you were very excited about.
He was the Blue Ranger in the 3rd season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
There you go. Very important.
Very important. Anytime someone's on a Power Rangers season, though I have only watched like 3 episodes in my life, I have to bring it up because I think that is a good. I am glad when any of those kids make it out of that.
The Chloe is played by Lisa Sheridan, who apparently passed away in 2019, which I did not realize.
Oh, that's great. Let's see. Wikipedia links her Instagram. I will not click on that now. I do enjoy that they make. I realized about halfway through the episode, this is a lot of walk and talk.
Yeah, so much.
Whether it's from somewhat like a found footage shot or from them just walking down the street. They're always this has camera work that is what I'm sure what they would describe it as dynamic. I would call it swimmy.
It is very swimmy. It is a lot of like the camera panning from the front of their vehicle up to the street where they're walking towards it, or when they're walking past the camera, it panning up into the sky. Like it's doing a lot of that stuff.
It's a lot of like low shots going up, and a lot of like the cameras running. They're walking towards the camera, and the camera is intimidated by their urgency. But they always make sure that it is boy, girl, boy.
Mm-hmm.
It is always Chloe between the 2 boys.
Yes, they have to break that up. And every shot too, like when they're walking together, and even when they're standing, like they have him they have like Derek, played by Ethan Embry, in the front of the frame. They have her in the middle of the frame, and they have Jason way in the back of the frame. So there's like always the boy girl thing. It had to be, at least early on, this is production code number 1, like a note, like we are going to make sure it is boy, girl, boy. If they're in the distance, there's like, not only is it like it's boy, girl, boy going backwards, it is still perspective wise, left to right, boy, girl, boy. It even works like that in the beginning too, when they're in the car, because when you're looking at the car, you still see, even though she's in the back seat, she's in the middle of the back seat, so that it's boy, girl, boy.
I don't know why, it just, because she wore this red shirt a lot, and so she was kind of a flat, bold color between their kind of Jason's guns out sleeveless shirt and Derek's bland white guyness. Like she just like, here's a color block in the middle, and it's like, oh, they're always gonna do this.
Yeah.
Wow. What great television making. They've got it all figured out.
So the episode opens with Derek recording his podcast. He's talking about how they were out trying to find the Tennessee Bigfoot.
They always call it the Tennessee Bigfoot. Like there's a specific brand of Bigfoot.
I'm actually curious if that's a thing. Tennessee Bigfoot. Let's see.
And I do like that he says he does start with a proverb. But then he, of course, says it may have been a lame fortune cookie I read, just to really be culturally sensitive to that.
Well, there's a lot of that in here for a little bit. They think that they're dealing with the Thunderbird, this sort of legendary creature in indigenous people culture, and then they're like, no, it's not that. Actually, we're not going to go down that road.
Boy,
Thank God, though.
I'm really glad they mixed together the Thunderbird from native indigenous culture and the words ancient evil. We'll get into their math as well, which is fantastic.
Apparently, Tennessee Bigfoot is a thing. I mean, there was a Tennessee Bigfoot conference. There's a Smoky Mountain Bigfoot conference. There's a Bigfoot Adventure Tennessee, which is an RV park and campground.
Man, I love the seasonal song by Amy Grant, the Tennessee Bigfoot. Another tender Tennessee Bigfoot is the only Bigfoot for me.
There's the Bigfoot Adventure Tennessee zip line. I think there's some point in the future where you, me, and a bunch of our friends may all end up trying to go to the Smoky Mountains at some point. So maybe we can coordinate it around the Bigfoot conference there in Gatlinburg.
We should, but also we should make sure it doesn't fall into a 30-year block coming back from the Civil War, which they throw out like, if you go back 30 years chunks, it's the Civil War. I'm like,
is it?
Is it? Or can you just say that?
So before we get too far into the episode, we were talking about how lucrative their website must be. And if it was online still, it does not appear to be. But I did look up, because I was curious, how much it would cost now to buy freakylinks.com.
Well, this is a running thing.
It is a running thing. And because I'm always curious, I'm like, why not find out? And take a guess at how much it would be to get freakylinks.com. I will tell you that it renews at $13.98 a year, but you still have to do the initial purchase fee.
A pack of Tic Tacs and a Pokemon card.
I wish that was the case. No, it is $4,999.
Man, inflation has gone up so much.
It has. There does not appear to be a freakylinks.net, which makes me think that might be purchased already. Maybe by one of the people who started online petitions to ask Fox Network to bring back the show. Oh, was there that?
Of course, everything that was canceled by Fox and everything was canceled by Fox had an online petition, and guess what? None of them worked. You go back in time and save yourself the effort. It did not work.
But if we wanted to jazz up Freaky Links, I mean, we could get a Freaky Links .inc. We could get a Freaky Links .live, .digital, .info.
You think they have a Patreon now?
All less than like $10.
Still too much.
I mean, yeah, sure.
We should probably buy it for our website, though.
Yeah. Freakylinks.xyz. I could get for $1 a year.
Freaky links to examine your zipper.
But anyway, so yeah, he mentions that they were out looking for the Tennessee Bigfoot and they did not find it. No luck.
No luck.
But,
so like that episode, we missed an episode of them not accomplishing anything.
Yes, I'm guessing that they thought about doing it and they're like, oh, it's much more fun to just mention that we did it and then we didn't find anything. So if someone were to say like, hey, you guys didn't talk about Tennessee Bigfoot, like, yeah, we did. It isn't real. When
are they going to get to the fireworks factory?
Well, they have that here. They definitely get to the fireworks factory in this one. So they don't find it, but they find something better. As he mentions, when you stop looking for something, that's when you find it, and it might be something you weren't expecting, which I guess that is something you might find of P.F. Chang's. I don't know. But they are in Georgia around 4:30 in the morning. And they're kind of arguing about, what they found, and they're teasing Derek about one of the other members of their group, Lon, who is basically just on the phone for most of this episode, hanging out in Derek's apartment, doing research for them.
She's defragging the hard drives.
Yeah, about her liking him and whatnot. But they stop because they come upon a car accident, and it's dark and raining, of course. And they see some blood, and they follow it into the woods, and they end up coming across this scared woman named Cassie, played by Erica Christensen. This is a couple years before her breakout role in Swim Fan. I guess she was also in Traffic this year, which I guess could be considered her breakout role, but everybody knows her.
I'm sure
Swim
whenever
Fan.
someone mentions her, they're like, congratulations, lead actress of Swim Fan,
yes,
on your secondary role in anything else.
I mean, come on, she's known as Swim Fan.
She's in that surf movie too, right?
Which one is that?
Wasn't the one that I don't know?
There's a surf movie.
Surf Fan.
Surf Fan. Yes.
Surf Fan Stevens.
I love how much you surf, and how well you surf. So yeah, they find her and they take her into town. The town that they're in is Owensmouth. And
that's terrible.
I don't get, like, Chloe keeps saying that sounds familiar to her, but I don't remember why that. I don't know if that ever comes up, why that sounds familiar to her, or why she knows it.
Is it because of they are aware of the thing that Lon's gonna look up later for them?
The Civil War thing?
Yeah, maybe.
Where was that in Owensmouth?
Maybe, I don't know.
I have no idea. I must have missed that.
There's a lot of dropped things. Like, here's the thing about this episode. From here until like 25 minutes in, it's them talking to the locals, and I glazed out because it was the most fucking annoying thing I have ever seen on television. I hated every minute of it. They all have southern accents. It's just them talking about megapixels. They call back to Lon. We hear his voicemail saying, "I'm either surfing the waves or surfing the web." It is the most cringe thing I've ever seen. Like, literally, it eats up a good 2 commercial breaks where fucking nothing happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 43-minute episode, and you could probably cut about 20 minutes of it, and it would be fine.
Considering, like, they don't learn anything until they get out there. Like, there's no hint of what it actually is until the last 3 minutes.
Yeah,
there's no like, besides Lon calling with like, "Hey, I found out this about the crime scene." There's no like little things leading to you to believe what it's going to actually be.
No, they don't do a good job of like setting it up in that kind of way. Like,
well, they can't show it.
True,
so.
but I will give them props for that. Also, speaking of megapixels, we watched this a very bad quality, and that's what everybody's made out of, megapixels, because they are just blocky little things.
I wonder if it was
around
actually easier to watch the shaky cam during the worst parts.
It was, yes, you're right. It gave it another sense of realism, but they get some info, and they the cops come, the sheriff comes in, and they escort the woman Cassie out. She is in this episode for one scene basically, and then is done. We don't see her ever.
Well, isn't
again.
she also in the flashback where they're
Oh, that's right. That we do get the video of her later.
She has a giant crown on,
true.
and like and Brandon is drinking, and I was just so afraid they were gonna start cheering him on and telling him to let's go.
This show is very ahead of its time. That would be great if that's where it came from. If he did say that, and then we find out later that
I promise you that
all the QAnon people just loved freaky links.
It has to be up there as far as shows they like.
I mean, it is. It's a show about exposing the truth to the people.
It's about surfing the waves and surfing the web.
That's right.
It's from shooting from the feet up. There's this part where they're filming the locals to ask some questions, and they're filming for their website. They're kind of trying to act like they're not, but there's one person who goes to the website and thinks she's in a lot of this part of the scene. But like, I appreciate that nowadays that most people who are trying to become famous on the web are going out of their way to make everything look very high quality, and like they invest money in lighting and cameras that look good and shooting in ways that frame things.
Yes.
These guys who seem to this is their life, their job, and they're making fun of this girl for not being good at filming things, literally must have the camera on their knees. They have a GoPro on their knee pads.
I will say that the technology obviously has improved in the last 20-something years. So,
yeah, we have our arms now have evolved to go higher.
I will say just for the quality purposes, but yes, the shooting style is very sort of run and gun, avant-garde kind of thing, where you're like cutting back and forth between super extreme close-ups of people to being far away. We get
so much of Jason's tongue and mouth later.
So they talk to a variety of people. There's a weird mechanic guy who tells them all about there were some bear attacks a couple 20 years ago or something like that. You can hear the flies buzzing around him, so you know that he smells bad. They talk to a little girl who at one point has like a mask on over her eyes, like she's a superhero, and then later has taken that off and replaced it with a big giant hood. And she tells them that the woods are haunted. And then they spend most of their time talking to a waitress at this diner who tells them all about she actually doesn't have a name. She is just waitress in the credits of the IMDb page. So I'm not being...
She had like the fourth most, like, she's right up there with Ron Canada for screen time this episode.
Yes,
though.
she has a lot of screen time, but she tells them about how she wants to be a filmmaker. She recognizes what kind of camera they're using and everything. And
4 megapixels.
And she shows them a video that she shot of Cassie and Brandon being out at the at like the homecoming dance or something like that, or the party after homecoming, and they've both been crowned the king and queen, and they're drinking and drunk and having a good time. And they leave a little clue here that will pay off later, because she mentions his watch, and says how nice it is. And Cassie's like, "Oh, I gave it to him." And we'll see that watch in just a little bit. But then
it's just there for a outro line. By
yes,
the way.
it is. Then we get a moment where the waitress turns to Derek and says, "Hey, I want to be a filmmaker, and I've got a lot of home movies that I've made, and if you want to come and take a look at them sometime later, that would be great." It's like, all right, they both, and I would give them credit that both of them know exactly what they're talking about.
They do. I think he makes another dirty joke right after too.
I bet I think he does. But like, yeah, they're definitely.
Wouldn't that be great if like the rest of the episode was just the sex tape thing instead of like what we act like them looking for a fucking flying reptile?
That's what this needs to. That's what this kind of transitions into. It transitioned into like a Red Shoe Diaries type show where it's just going like, yeah. So we were out there hunting for some ancient evil, but I started fucking this girl, and it turned out it was a pteranodon that got blown up.
So we were talking earlier that like a show about Civil War people fighting a pteranodon would be great. I mean, movie.
Yes,
that would be fantastic. Michael Bay would make it. It would do terrible. He's dead. If Moonfall can't make it, this pteranodon Civil War movie can't make it.
What I was thinking of is, and I don't think you've seen this, but there was a movie a couple of years ago called Overlord, which was it was a World War II movie. And these guys land and they get attacked. They land in this town, and when their plane gets blown up, and then they realize that there's some weird medical experiments going on, and there's like monsters and all kinds of shit they have to fight.
And they're Cadillacs, and they're also dinosaurs.
But it's kind of like there's a little bit of Doom, there's a little bit of Resident Evil all mixed in. The movie's awesome. It's super fun. It's very sort of over the top, and it's a blast. And like that kind of thing for the overall sort of story that they're trying to tell here would be awesome. And I don't know why it hasn't been done.
See, what I want though is instead is a show that starts like this, where starts off like an X-Files, where the person's going to a town with his team, he's collecting evidence, talking to locals about what strange happenings, getting a kind of a little glimpse into what's going on, some kind of tragedy or some kind of missing people. And then one of the locals says, "Hey, why don't we go back to my house and fuck?" And that's the rest of the episode. They don't ever go back to it. Like it always starts like they're setting up a fucking X-Files episode, and it always ends in shows.
That is like
in Skinamax.
Yes, that is like a mid-2000s Cinemax show. That's what I'm sure that existed. That had to have existed.
Like they never get back to it. Like never. Like they come back and like he's like I had a great time. Did you guys find out anything? And it ends.
No, but like. So they get the info from her. They know about the watch. They go out into the woods to look for this campsite where Cassie and Brandon had been posted up for the night. And they find the campsite, and they also hear a watch going off. And so they head out to try to figure out where that's coming from, and they find the watch that Brandon had. It's still attached to his severed arm that's hanging in a tree. And they have he has a closing line that goes out to commercial break, which is that Brandon ran out of time, but his watch didn't get the memo, which is not even a good thing.
It's not a good line because watches don't get memos.
That's also in a P.F. Chang's fortune cookie. You might have run out of time, but make sure your watch gets the memo.
You know, when you get the memo about time. And how much time you have left? Like, I got a memograph. I have 5 minutes left.
So they're running around, trying to get out of the woods. They get stopped by John Lockhart, played by Ron Canada. This sort of the episode's big guest star, kind of like very much like Erie, Indiana did with some of their little guest stars. Ron Canada has been in a ton of shit. I'm sure that you've you had to have seen him in something. Let's see what
is Shield.
Let's see what his big. Oh man, he's in Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. I didn't know about that.
I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that. Literally, the child is very large.
He's in a pretty great little horror film from 2020 called The Empty Man, which not a lot of people saw. Actually, pretty solid little little movie there. He's also in Man of the House with Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Chevy Chase. Another great film. But he's there. He basically tells them that they need to get out of the woods or else they'll face the same fate as
into the
Brandon.
woods and out of the woods and into the woods and out of the woods. So my daughter's in the her school play for Into the Woods, so I have to hear that all day long.
So they talk to the sheriff who hauls away the arm and ask him about some sort of ancient evil lurking in the woods, and he basically
tells them to fuck off.
Yeah, he tells them to fuck off. He basically says, if you guys need to hurry up and leave, because if I see you again, I'm going to arrest you for annoying me.
And because it's 2000 and it is pre 9/11, just barely. They of course say it's a free country.
Yes, yeah, it's a free country, man. We can do what we want, man. And again,
the Patriot Act has not yet been enacted, so they think they can get away with a lot more than they actually can.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to that idea of like, I'm just getting the truth out there, man. The man's not going to stop me.
Well, it gets a lot worse in a second.
Sure. So they realize that they need to look at the body. For some reason, Derek really needs to see the body. And they go to the funeral home where the corpse is being held, and Jason pretends to be the relative of someone who died recently, and so that they can be in there and that Derek can sneak away to go to the bathroom to get into the morgue to look at the body. This scene is very dumb because it requires Jason to pretend to cry about this dead relative. But it's the only reason it's worth mentioning is because the funeral director looks like an adult Slappy from Goosebumps. Like, he looks like a very weird man.
He is a very interesting character for this, and it immediately makes you wish all the side characters were as cartoonish but interesting to watch. As it's like all the people they interviewed earlier, if they had been more like this instead of just kind of mumbling locals.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the part where. Okay, so his setup to go into this was irritating, where he was talking about how clever he's going to have to be to pull this off. And then he fucking basically like just starts taking pictures and going around and touching corpses, which
he's like a fucking.
I don't care what you like. I don't care what you think you're doing, and if you're uncovering unextinct monsters you're going to kill, you can't just do that to somebody's corpse.
No, he's like a regular Logan Paul here, going into the morgue and like just filming a random unrelated dead body.
Yeah, that's great. I want to see someone punch him too.
It's like very weird because he's just looking at this old woman on the table, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I have something I have to do, which is go into the drawer and look at the severed arm." And then we get a shot from the camera because, again, it cuts back and forth between the POV of the camera a lot, which allows them to, I think, maybe hide like cheaper effects
into the woods. Yes.
And they don't have to like show as much. And so we get the POV of the camera as he goes into the drawer and pulls the arm out and is doing a lot of heavy breathing as he digs through the bag to pull the arm out, so he can get a good shot of the bite mark or the severed mark where the arm was cut clean. And he, films that, and then they then use this is early 2000s technology. So they take their cell phone, which is a flip phone. And since they all use the same phone, I think they only have one cell phone between the three of them. I think this was the period of time where like that was an exorbitant cost. I mean, it still is, but like
it's the businesses.
Oh, okay. It's the Freaky Links cell phone, but they
can write it off.
Yes, they tether their cell phone to their computer so that they can use that I guess, modem technology to email a photo to Lon back at HQ so that she can take a look at the arm, the severed arm, and then get some information from some other guy. I don't know who this other guy is. I guess I didn't watch enough of the show to remember who this person was. But they then she takes that photo to some guy who talks about her appearance and how she's changed in 3 episodes, and how he has a real job, unlike Derek, who runs a website, and that he wants to like take her to dinner or something.
It's very aggressive.
Yeah. I guess we're supposed to know who these characters are, but again, I don't, so it doesn't matter.
Just simply episode 4.
Yes, it's episode 4, and we've got some dense backstory already.
Yeah, where he's like, I like that you've changed your look. And we're like, this is the only look I've ever seen of her. And like, it's only been 4 episodes. How different could she look?
I think she had glasses at one point.
Yes, in the promo shots for the show, which are funny. Her hair is up and she has glasses.
Yeah, the one guy who's in the show or the promos that we don't get, his name is Vince. He was sort of like he would just kind of show up from time to time and give some information to Derek about weird mystical shit. This was Dennis Christopher, who is in a pretty good little 1980 horror film called Fade to Black, which started to get like a bit of a resurgence in the last couple of years as it's made its way online. It's interesting, worth watching, especially if you like movies. It's basically a weird incel who likes movies too much, so he does some bad stuff. But yeah, he didn't show up in this episode, unfortunately. So they go to talk to John Lockhart because they find some clippings about how his kid got killed, 20 years ago. And so they want to go talk to him about that. And when they get there happens to be... It's actually very funny because they're filming John as he pulls up in his truck, and he just kind of nonchalantly says, "There's a bear behind you."
And there was.
They turn, and there's like a bear like growling at them and chasing them. And then I
thought it was going to be somebody in a bear suit trying to scare them away.
Yeah, the sheriff is out there with the bear suit on.
I have more to say about the sheriff and his motivations later.
But yeah, then John shoots the bear with a gun and takes them inside and kind of basically reveals to them what he thinks they are looking for, which is he shows them this giant totem of the Thunderbird, like we already mentioned. This sort of legendary creature in North American indigenous people mythology. It exists, I think, in the Pacific Northwest, but also in the American Southwest and the East Coast, the Great Lakes, the Great Plains. So it's all over the United States. I guess people consider it a cryptid now. Kind of like a Bigfoot or a Loch Ness monster, which feels a little weird, but whatever. And he says this is what he believes it is. He believes that this thing is showing up traveling across the country over a 30-year period, and then it ends up back here in its migratory pattern and kills a couple people and eats them, and then moves on to its next location. And he has some dynamite, and he's ready to kill it the next time it comes out.
The fact that this ends up being a revenge story for against the last of a species or something, instead of an indigenous people's symbology is very interesting.
Yeah,
not sure why it had to be why it turned into I have to get revenge for my son and blow it up with dynamite story. This is where the whole episode is weird in that it takes on this whole Pennywise thing. Which,
yes,
considering either the Thunderbird, which is not a monster.
Yes.
or it's what it ends up being, which is pterodon, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
Why do you like? I was waiting for something else to explain why it isn't this 30-year recurring thing if it is what it ends up being. And instead they act like since it is a pterodon, it makes total sense why it lives in a cave and comes out every 30 years.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you basically explained what the end of that was, but this is where we do get we understand now that it's not actually the Thunderbird. We get some information from Lon that says that the bite was a clean bite. It was like a pelican snapping into a fish, and this somehow gives Derek the understanding that it is definitely not this Thunderbird, but in fact it is a pteranodon. And he
acts like he had been on the trail of the fact that it was going to be a pteranodon the entire time. This was the last thing that made it fall into place. And if you were a true freaker, as he tells his people he's recording the podcast for, you at this point would have put all it together as well that it was a pteranodon. No, they wouldn't have, because nothing up until this point makes it a pteranodon.
Yeah. So he says, he's like, it was like the coelacanth or coelacanth fish. Coelacanth, I think is what he says. That's how you pronounce that.
That's how the name of the episode is about. Too.
Yeah, the name of the episode is Coelacanth this, which I don't get that. I don't understand what they're trying to say there. But he says that it's like that fish that everybody thought was extinct, but actually wasn't. And so this leads me to believe that this is a pteranodon that I know is real because I have this photo of some Civil War soldiers posing with the corpse of a pteranodon, and that's what this must be.
All right, so A, they get that from the Library of Congress. Very funny. 2, it's a very funny picture. 3, this is where your story comes together.
Yes. So, this is where my story, my personal connection to this episode comes in, and why I wanted to talk about this one specifically. At a certain point when I was much younger, I liked reading the Weekly World News. Before they kind of turned into this weird sort of shitty, like I think they kind of went a little weirdly right wing. I think I know the National Enquirer did. I don't know if Weekly World News like went that far, but I think they did kind of start to get a little shitty. It looks like now they are going to the metaverse. So. They are creating some sort of Weekly World News planet in the metaverse, which is great.
Basically, they have a little office in Second Life.
Yes. So I don't know if they went super right wing like some of the other magazines did. I mean, they do have an article that's confirming that 8 U.S. senators are aliens, including Ted Cruz and Mitch McConnell. So, whatever. But there was an article in the Weekly World News. I used to buy the print edition at the grocery store every now and then because they were fun to read, and I was into sort of that level of supernatural kind of thing of like the cryptids and the aliens, and like I liked all that shit. It was a fun little pastime to read up all this research on stuff and be like, ooh, could that be real? And I remembered specifically when this episode aired, they showed this photo of these Civil War guys standing over this pteranodon, this picture. And I was like, that looks really familiar. And I dug through some issues of Weekly World News that I had, and I found an article in one of them that had a picture. And I don't remember if it was the exact same picture or a different one. If you search for like Civil War pterodactyl photo, you will find a couple different versions. one of which is the one from this episode, which you have some information about in a second. But like, I remembered going through the article, finding it, and then in the article itself, it specifically mentions Derek Barnes. He found this photo on like a particular, like on a trip to something that he was doing, and I was like, what the fuck? So, and then that was like this weird thing where I kind of, it's like finding your presents at Christmas and realizing there isn't a Santa Claus. It like kind of, the scales fell from my eyes and I was like, oh, this is all fake bullshit.
It's got to be just so sad in a way of like how wrestling fans should feel as a wrestling fan when they throw somebody at the ropes and they can't stop themselves from hitting the ropes and bouncing back. But so what I was looking at, I was actually just trying to figure out what issue
yeah, I can't find it, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm misremembering it, but I specifically remember that in my brain of like seeing that and reading that name in it specifically. It's a little tiny article, and it was just like, whoa, this is weird. I was like, did they tie in with the show? And if they tied in with the show and the show is fake, then this has got to be fake, which means that everything in here must be fake.
So what's fun when I looked it up was there's a lot on this specific picture, a lot, because it keeps up being brought up, especially the longer we go from this show, as people are going, is this picture real? And there's other pictures that have been made that are similar. This is kind of based on, but this specific picture, which was made by the show, and they admit it, you can look it up, that they made this picture to promote the show.
Yes.
Is held up by a lot of people as being real, despite the very obvious truth.
Yeah.
And there's a cryptological person who has made his career, named Jonathan David Whitcomb, who is really behind, like, he has just completely made his life about and cornered his life around this specific picture. He has a book called Modern Pterosaurs, which the background of the book is this picture. And it says nonfiction on it. It's an astonishing true story of our awakening to an old photograph, which is this picture from this show. And it says that this little book is cryptozoology genre. Its conclusions support literal interpretations of the Old Testament of the Bible, but it is still in the genre of nonfiction cryptozoology.
Yeah.
So this guy, and like other people, like a lot of the people who are talking about cryptids and this picture in general bring him up in a, this guy is so fucking stupid sort of way. Like this guy like has just completely tripled down on this photograph is real. It is literally from this show.
Yeah.
It's, and this is as late as 2015, he wrote this book and used this picture as the basis of his book that supports the literal truth of the events of the Bible from the Civil War picture with a pterodon. If you're wondering, he must be the dumbest man alive.
Yeah,
and I'm not just saying that about people who are looking for literal truth in the Bible and of the stories being the history of the world. They're already a special sort of dumb. But to use this picture of a dinosaur with Civil War people, they're not dinosaurs, of a flying reptile with the Civil War people from this TV show that is a piece of shit TV show, and that make that the cornerstone of your career, you're incredibly dumb.
Yeah.
And anyone about the book is also stupid.
Well, I think it's funny too, because it's that thing of like, when I saw that and when I made the connection of, all right, the show is this character in a fake show is being referenced in this thing that is purporting to be real. And then I know Weekly World News never purported to be real. It was all just fun bullshit. Obviously, Batboy isn't a thing, even though I'd like it to be. I know, I blew your mind right now. But like, I know that it's all just bullshit and fake, but it's fun to pretend and it's fun to believe. And even though I knew that shit wasn't probably real, it still was that weird thing of like, oh, this is all bullshit. It's all fake. It's probably a tie-in with the show because they know that the people who like that thing would find it fun to see something like that in Weekly World News. And instead of me doubling down and going, well, the show must be based on real people, like you get a lot of stuff today, I was just like, oh, it's all fake. And I can move on with my life and not and not like believe this stuff anymore, or not even like entertain the idea that it's real. Like it's I think it's funny today where when you present someone with a piece of evidence of something being fake, and then but they don't but then they double down on everything else, going, well, that thing might be fake, but all this other shit is definitely real.
Because they've made it their personality.
Yes.
Which is a problem. And we don't understand, in general, we have a real hard time understanding just how real things work. We like a narrative of the actual understanding of how things work and how time works and how everything works is very confusing and very annoying. Like the idea, like I've mentioned before, like people, we love sci-fi and we love ships and we love flying to other planets. We love to do ourselves. The reality of how fucking far away everything is much, much more annoying than you would want it to be for what we would love it to be.
Yeah.
They like when they go on this whole thing in this show of like, every 30 years, go back 30 years in Civil War. And then, so it's been around since Civil War. Pterodons went extinct 66 million years ago. The Civil War is a couple, a fraction of 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 a second ago in comparison.
Yeah.
66, and that's pretty late in the story of giant reptiles in us. That's pretty close considering 66 million years ago.
Yeah.
66 million humans have been around hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
66 in 1 million years from now, we will not be around. In 1 million, like people are like, oh, the sun's gonna blow up and gonna expand into a red giant in 4 billion years. What are we gonna do? We are not. Does anyone believe we're gonna be around under 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 1 million years, 66 million years? This thing has been flying up and down the coast of and hiding in rocks, and only one of them being alive. What the fuck are they talking about? But he figured it out because he's a true freaker.
That's right. So they,
and it lives in a cave.
Yes,
it lives in a cave.
So John,
it's a flying reptile.
John, he realizes the
like a pelican. It lives in a cave.
Yeah, the sheriff and John meet up on the road, and oh, and I guess they get attacked too. Derek and Jason.
This is
and
clever and annoying.
Chloe, they head out onto the into the woods with some hot dogs that they throw out in their car and film it to try to get the pteranodon to come for them. It attacks their car. It's not really anything. You don't see anything, of course, because the camera work is shaky. And they tell the sheriff like what they saw, and the sheriff says, "Go home, get the fuck out of here." And then he meets up with John, who, he tells him like, "Hey, I'm going to fight this thing. I'm going to kill it because it killed my kid." And the sheriff is like, "I'm trying to help you here, man. I'm feeling like I'm down in a deep, dark cave and I can't understand what's going on." And then that somehow triggers John to realize that the pteranodon must be living underground. And so he knocks out the sheriff so he can't follow him. And at some point, Derek realizes that the campsite where Brandon and Cassie were staying must have been near the cave entrance where this thing was living. So they go to the cave. He runs off by himself, of course, filming it all. And he finds some bones from Spirit Halloween store. And he also finds John, who's all clawed up and messed up, and he.
Well, the irony is, once they've killed this thing, and it no longer is in there for 30 years, Spirit Halloween is going to move into this cave.
That's right. And he lights some dynamite, and the it's must have a very long fuse on it because it takes a little while for it to blow up. But Derek gets attacked by the pteranodon. He gets like thrown around. We see some like flapping wings a little bit. We see some claws, but they do a good job of not showing you too much to keep the illusion of mystery up, and also to hide the fact that it would probably have looked like shit if they had shown it. And he gets knocked out, but the sheriff shows up, and rescues him, and it looks like the sheriff does see the pteranodon at some point, shoots at it, and then the dynamite explodes just as they're able to escape the cave. And the sheriff closes things out by saying that whatever it was down there, it was overdue for extinction.
But the Civil War guys killed one too, and it didn't go extinct.
Apparently not. I guess maybe that was its mate, and so it's been hanging around for 100-something years, waiting to die, I guess.
Or they're super inbred. This is a story where they came up with the idea of the viral marketing with that picture.
Yes,
but they did not have any way to get there. like they had like a different story, and they decided it's gonna be a pterodon. And it's like nothing about this story and your conclusion and the 30-year cycle and the underground, because that's where Pennywise was. Makes any sense for a flying reptile.
No, I'm trying to remember when the first. Let's see, when did the first Jeepers Creepers come out? I mean, by that horrible pedophile director. That came out in 2001. So right after this, I don't know if it was in the development at the same time or what, but that also has
parallel thinking.
That has a very similar kind of thinking of every 20 something years, or like 27 years or whatever, it comes out and it feeds and then it hides in a cave, basically.
I mean, that is a thing that's a recurring thing in just fiction in general.
Yes.
Because we are always just kind of fascinated with as a species with like things that kind of go away and come back.
Yeah.
Because some things do that. Not 66 million year old actual not monster reptiles. Like dinosaurs weren't and pterodons weren't ancient evils. They were just animals.
They were just animals, yes. It's very weird to me that they're treating it like it's some sort of monster or whatever. Like it is
like it almost could have been like, hey, it is the Thunderbird.
Yeah.
But then they might have realized at some point, hey, we're calling this iconography of indigenous people an ancient evil. Maybe we should make it something else.
Yeah.
Let's make this our pterodon episode. And it's like, well, wow. Good for you guys.
Look, I got this cool photo that we can recreate.
Well, we're gonna make this one guy's career for the rest of his life through 2015. For the next 14 years, he's gonna use this as solid proof of the literary truth of the fucking Bible.
Yeah, this guy's yeah, he got something out of this episode. Thankfully, he got a career. He got a whole career out of this episode. Good for him.
Out of it. We got one episode. That's something.
But yeah, then the episode ends with him.
What was the sheriff's motivation for trying to cover this up? Other than he keeps saying like in 30 years it'll be someone else's problem because it's all an allegory to global warming. But
yeah, I don't know what his problem is. Like, I don't know why. It would be one thing if the sheriff were
he doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, if he were trying to cover it up, that would be one thing where you're like, oh, he knows what this is, but he wants to keep it quiet for some reason. That doesn't make any sense.
That's the hint, and that's what you would do for this sheriff character in this show. Yes. Except for, once again, the payoff doesn't make sense for what they set up.
No, for sure. It would make sense if he were somehow connected to it, or he was using this thing like it was under his control or something, and he was using it to like
at one
kill
point
people.
He goes, people die. It's been happening for years. Like, do they fucking have? Is this COVID denying? Like, what is this? Why does he care? And then when he's totally cool with helping them take this down at the end, and then it's like basically wants a fist bump when it's over.
Yeah,
it's like, I wasn't gonna do anything, but now I've solved the problem.
Yeah, and then we get the end of the episode with him finishing up his little podcast, and smelling the pillow that Lon was sleeping on in his apartment earlier, and smiling about it. Gross. Yeah, it's not great, but I don't know. I know that you didn't like this. It was still fun for me to revisit it, just because it was like a big nostalgia thing for me.
I think this is our age difference. If I had been 10 years younger at this point, it would have hit hard. I don't like this time. This is where I became an adult and everything became confusing and irritating to me.
Sure.
So I don't fucking like the 2000s. I'm fine now. I'm chilled down, but like I don't fucking like the 2000s.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like I said, you don't. This is not something that I would necessarily like recommend people run out and watch. If you have a fondness,
you got to see that fart joke when they say it's just baloney.
Oh, that's right. If you have a fondness for this show, like if you watched it as a kid or around, you were like 15 or so when this was on and you were watching it, it might hold up for you. I didn't think it was that bad. Obviously, the 2000s of it all definitely stick out.
It only had 13 episodes because it could only have 13
Yes,
episodes.
exactly.
This show couldn't exist as once 2003 hit. There's no way.
Yeah, no. This is a show that would not have made it past 9/11, which it didn't. So that like totally makes sense. Like it
I love that. Well, so many of our shows were just kind of pivoting around that, and some like it's this huge gigantic gravity of what a show should be like before or after, and that's kind of
sure.
true.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's definitely something to that. So we're at the end here, so we got to rate this on our scale of weirdness. So where do you place Freaky Links? I almost called it Erie, Indiana.
I'm going to give it a 7 because A, I had no idea it existed.
Okay.
And 2, or B, just it's so, it is such a concept that is specifically to that time,
Yes.
but at the same time, it's kind of wrapped around where you could retool it to be about current influencers.
Oh yes, for sure. Like I'm surprised that there hasn't been some sort of like.
There might, Josh. Here's the thing: there might be.
Okay.
There's just 1,000. There's a bazillion TV shows we don't know.
Fair point.
I had no idea they remade Magnum PI and Miami Vice and MacGyver, and they've been on for years. I had no fucking clue, zero. And they're on they're on network television.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think that this is one of those things that like it's hard to say that it's like that weird. I mean, I guess it is. I guess I would.
It's weird, and to me, it's like it's weird in how, like, someone dies and they don't give a shit.
True.
Like that's really what kind of makes it really the early 2000s versus the late 2000s for me. Is like they don't give a shit that this guy died.
Yeah, it's more about just like figuring out why he died or what killed him. They don't really care about what it is.
It's about getting their story. Like everyone in this town could die, and like as long as they get some hits, they're fine.
True. Yeah, I'll say that I'll give it a 6 only because like I don't find it exceptionally weird, but I think I'll give it that high of a score only because of the weirdness of just looking back at the early 2000s of like 2000s culture with the music, the filmmaking, the just the technology. Like I think all of that is kind of weird.
Pterodon too.
Yes, and it's
a lot of our shows aren't about. It could have been a
and it's about the and it's partially about Civil War soldiers killing a flying reptile.
It really needed to be more about that.
Yeah, because at one point they start doing a flashback, and it's just a quick shot of some guys in Civil War recreation uniforms walking in a line with some torches, and I'm like, show me more of that.
If true freakers want to see more of that,
yeah, go to freakylinks.com, which I bought for $5,000.
Bargain. It's gonna pay off when they relaunch it.
Yeah, I can get Freaky Links VIP for $5. So
sign up for our Patreon to help us relaunch Freaky Links.
Yes, that's what we need. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of Center of Weirdness. Thanks so much for joining us as always. And until next time, when we're watching another weird TV show and talking all about it, I've been Josh.
I've been Skinner.
And keep it weird out there and watch the skies or caves or wherever else a pteranodon might live.
Watch the waves or the web.
Watch the waves or the web. That's right. We'll be back in a couple of weeks because we'll be busy surfing the waves and the web in the meantime.
I need a hunk of fun like that in my life. Everything they say in this episode is cringe.
You've been listening to Center of Weirdness. If you like this show, rate and review us wherever you find it, but especially on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to every episode at centerofweird.com, where you can also find all of the old Predictocast episodes. And if you want to get in touch with us to tell us about a show we should cover, hit us up on Twitter at WeirdCenter. As always, thanks for listening.